On January 30th, 2026, SpaceX filed with the Federal Communications Commission requesting permission to launch up to 1 million satellites described as orbital data centers for artificial intelligence compute. The filing frames this as communications infrastructure requiring routine regulatory approval. It is not routine, and I think we should question the legality of this action. The filing describes a constellation capable of 100 gigawatts of compute capacity, operating via laser-linked mesh networks that require minimal ground infrastructure. These satellites would process data entirely in orbit, beyond the reach of terrestrial regulation or oversight. This is not a communications network in any traditional sense. It is a global surveillance and processing capability, potentially with direct military applications. We don't need to speculate about the potential military use. Recent U.S. operations demonstrate the integration of satellite intelligence with autonomous targeting. Since September 2025, the U.S. military has conducted more than 35 strikes on vessels in the Caribbean and Pacific, killing more than 115 people based on satellite surveillance and AI-assisted targeting. In June 2025, the U.S. bombed 3 legal Iranian nuclear facilities using intelligence gathered through orbital assets. Current military operations in the Caribbean explicitly rely on real-time satellite surveillance for target identification. SpaceX's existing Starlink constellation already provides this capability. The pending FCC filing would scale it 100-fold. The Federal Communications Commission regulates communications infrastructure, radio spectrum allocation, broadcast licensing, telecommunication standards. It does not have the statutory authority to approve military surveillance systems, weapons targeting platforms, or autonomous warfare infrastructure. Yet that is precisely what this filing describes, whether SpaceX acknowledges it or not. If this constellation enables the military operations currently underway, then it is military infrastructure. If it is military infrastructure, then FCC approval is insufficient. Such capabilities require congressional authorization under Article 1 War Powers, Department of Defense oversight and compliance, intelligence community review, international treaty compliance review, constitutional scrutiny regarding separation of powers. None of these processes are triggered by an FCC filing. Now, this creates a logical trap. If this is military infrastructure, the FCC lacks authority to approve it. The filing used the wrong regulatory process to circumvent proper oversight. If this is not military infrastructure, then its use in targeting operations constitutes unauthorized military deployment of civilian systems, creating massive liability and violating the representations made to the FCC. If it is dual use, then it still triggers oversight requirements that a simple FCC filing cannot satisfy. I don't see a fourth option. The question demands a clear answer. If the FCC can approve orbital AI targeting infrastructure through routine communications licensing, what limits exist on its authority? Could it approve autonomous weapon platforms, orbital kinetic bombardment systems, space-based nuclear capabilities? Where is the line? Who draws it? And why is a communications regulator making these determinations? The filing arrived during a week of unprecedented military action. Days after U.S. forces kidnapped Venezuelan President Maduro, the same week the U.S. declared a national emergency regarding Cuba, amid renewed threats of military strikes against Iran during ongoing extrajudicial killings in international waters. The infrastructure being proposed is the infrastructure enabling these operations. The timing is not coincidental. Congress must assert its constitutional authority and demand answers. Under what statutory authority does the FCC claim jurisdiction over military surveillance infrastructure? What communications between SpaceX, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence agencies exist regarding military applications of this constellation? Why was this routed through civilian regulatory process rather than defense authorization? What international treaty obligations apply to weaponizations of space? What oversight mechanisms exist for orbital infrastructure used in lethal operations? The American people deserve clarity on whether constitutional checks and balances still constrain executive power, or whether private military contractors now operate beyond democratic oversight entirely. The core question remains: does the FCC have authority to approve military infrastructure? If yes, our constitutional system has been fundamentally altered without public debate or congressional action. If no, then this approval process is invalid and must be halted immediately. Either answer demands a reckoning. The question can no longer be avoided.